Welcome to our DFB POKAL post-match show as Bayern Munich, now for the seventh time in 9 seasons, will be playing in the cup final after defeating Eintracht Frankfurt 2-1 was the final from the Allianz Arena. Gareth Wheeler with you. Hope you enjoyed watching that on One Soccer. We will have the final July 4th on One Soccer, the viewing platform. Make sure you subscribe. It's a perfect time to do so as they take on Bayer Leverkusen. Leverkusen returning to the final for the first time since 2009 in a competition they haven't won since 1993. Gareth Wheeler, alongside co-founder and CEO of Pacific Football Club. It's Rob Friend, should I say Bundesliga legend as well, Joshua Kloke, and Oliver Platt. It just had to be, right? For the first time, we're bringing this competition to a Canadian viewing audience. And it's a Canadian in Alphonso Davies who has his footprints all over the match-winning goal. Albeit, it came a little bit delayed as it looked like he could have been a fraction offside, thanks to VAR showing that he was, in fact, onside. The goal stood. Robert Lewandowski gets the match winner, but Davies, right in the mix of it all, is just the perfect script to be written for Canadians tuning into this match today, Josh Kloke.
Yeah, I think so. And it was really interesting to see Davies get moved up to the wing. I mean, anybody that's read anything of mine knows that it's something I've been calling for a long time now with Bayern. But interesting to see how that worked at both ends of the pitch. The Frankfurt goal comes off a deflection, but I'm sure some people will argue that Davies was a little bit out of position there. So you kind of see the pros and the cons of moving a player like Davies midway through the match when, you want to see him attacking because he has that pace and you see how calm and poised he was close to goal, on the goal. But then when he's back, kind of in Bayern's own end, he kind of looked a bit out of place on the goal, not necessarily his fault, but it was a good performance as per from him. We shouldn't come to expect anything less from him lately.
Yeah, the double change came in the 61st minute after Bayern Munich were trying to hold on to their 1-0 lead. And Thiago came into the match just really to hold in the midfield. Bayern started to lose control in the middle of the park a little bit, so he shifted. Lucas Hernandez also brought him in with the double change, put him to lap back, and shifted Alphonso Davies forward, where you thought he was going to play a traditional left wing role, but that wasn't the case, Ollie. He played all across the front three, and his intervention came from the right-hand side. I thought it was a really nice piece of work. I think a lot of the country were yelling, shoot. Instead, he played it across to Kimmich, who did a wonderful job finding Lewandowski on the far post.
Yeah, and that's going to be the challenge for him. I think if he wants to be a winger for Bayern, I don't think Davies minds where he plays, but if he is going to play in those more advanced positions, he's going to need to be able to play across the front line in the way that Kingsley Coman and Serge Gnabry and Thomas Mueller can. That's what Bayern demand of their attacking midfield players is intelligent movement, playing in tight spaces in the middle of the fields. He's not going to be a left winger like Ryan Giggs, he's getting chalk on his boots on the touchline. So that's the kind of adjustment to his game that I think he's going to have to make if he is going to play further forward. But you can see the potential there. I think we all know that there were moments in the game today where Davies, maybe his passing wasn't quite crisp enough, the decisions weren't quick enough, and we know he has to work on that side of his game. But he's so explosive that when he receives the ball on the run and can take that first touch to push it out in front of him, he's such a dangerous player. And we saw that in the first half when Kingsley Coman should have scored and then on the goal as well.
What did you make of the way he played, Rob?
Yeah, no, I think it shows the versatility that he's obviously got. You kind of wonder, being Canadian, the Fonzie debate, whether he's a left back, whether he's offensive. I'm not getting in that debate. At the end of the day, the guy's extremely talented, very athletic. Very versatile. So, Bayern Munich sees that in him. Do I think he's got more value as a left back? Yes. I absolutely think he does. Going forward in Europe, 130 million valuation on him, and that's as a left back. So, but hey, he's extremely versatile, and he had a decent game today. I think we over scrutinize him as Canadians right now. As everyone. All eyes on Fonzie during that game? Probably not. But overall, he had essentially the game-winning assist. So hats off.
There's two things I really liked about the way he played here. One was his composure. He's just so cool and calm. as witnessed on the goal, there was no panic getting in behind the back and deciding to pass rather than shoot in that moment. And I thought I know there's been some talk about his positioning on the field, but Josh, throughout this match, his positioning was very good. He closed down players, gave enough space when he had to. They tried to beat him long, force him back. They pulled a player more inside. He had no problem shifting. I thought his movement was quite intelligent.
Yeah, and I think Hansi Flick really likes playing Davies because he's a young player who follows instructions very well, and he's a player that is a good student to have. He's a player that can basically do what Flick asks of him, and that's why I found this move up forward very interesting. What does this say about Davies going forward? Yes, it's basically half of a half, but does this mean that Flick maybe feels comfortable using him in a more advanced role in the future? What happens when Bayern get their full back line back moving forward? What does this mean for any transfers moving forward? Like, how comfortable is Flick playing him in an advanced role? To use him in an advanced role, in the semifinal of a cup match, when the game is not put to bed by any means. I think that speaks to, again, the confidence that he has in Alphonso Davies and his ability to maybe try him in the wing or in a forward position more often. So again, it's a very, very small sample size, but I think we have to look at what this means for Davies moving forward. And I think it speaks to the confidence that Flick has in his abilities to grow and follow instructions really well.
And really, if you're going to play in that Bayern Munich team, you have to be versatile, Ollie. Like, whether it's Alaba, whether it's Mueller, who plays all across the front line, whether it's Kimmich, from right back into the middle of the park, and he's not afraid to push forward as well. Adaptability is a positive trait for modern footballers, where you just don't want to be shoehorned when you're a talent like that, just in one position. And I can see John Herdman approaching things in a very similar way with the Canadian men's national team. If he needs them forward, that's fine. If he needs them at the back, then that's good as well.
Yeah, of course. And it's going to depend on the phase of the game as well, right? In the
Right.
first half, Bayern are dominant. They're playing in Frankfurt's half. And so if Davies had been playing in that higher position, there may not have been much space for him to play into. And so it makes sense to have him in that deeper starting position at left back, where he can, arrive in the attacking third with some momentum. But obviously, 60th minute, Frankfurt are trying to get back into the game. They're starting to exert some pressure themselves. And suddenly there's a lot of space for Bayern to play into on the counter-attack. And so getting Davies higher up the field in that context makes sense. So it depends on the different, phase of the game and the opponent and all kinds of different things. And I think, as you said, Gareth, Davies is just a good footballer, right? And he's got the ability to play in multiple different positions.
And I mean, that was a big moment, Rob, because full credit, you said it in the pre-match show that Frankfurt had to get stuck in, play within themselves. But in the second half, they started throwing around their weight, their physicality. They lacked a Rob Friend up front, to tell you the truth. They lacked that little bit of quality, that little bit of finish, because once they took control of the midfield, the game completely shifted in that second half of play.
Yeah, no, they did bring in Dosh, to sort of that stereotypical target man. I thought he would have brought a bit more to the game, but no, they got stuck in, to your point. They needed to, and we did touch on it earlier. Playing a team like Bayern, you're expected to lose, so you really have nothing to lose in those games, and you got to give it to them, right? Because if you give them any space, they're going to absolutely slaughter you. So I think they found their footing a little bit in the second half, and obviously that goal gave them tremendous confidence. And I'm guaranteed there was a point in the game where Bayern was a little bit worried, with the shift of momentum. But definitely credit to Eintracht to really roll their sleeves up, get a little bit dirty. You got to get dirty versus Bayern, because you're not going to outplay them on the field. So they did a decent job.
And they got the equalizer in the 69th minute as Frankfurt had a double substitution of their own. And it was the two substitutes in Kamada and Da Costa who inadvertently combined. Kamada's shot got blocked. And initially the match commentator blamed Alphonso Davies for not finishing his run to the ball that gave Da Costa time to jump on and put it into the back of the net. But really that was on Lucas Hernandez. And they kind of acknowledged that after. Did one of you guys question the way that Davies defended that goal that was conceded?
For me, it's on the defender who's kind of facing the play, and in that scenario, I think has got to be a little quicker and tougher. And it was the same thing in the Leverkusen game at the weekend. Lucas Hernandez came on, and I think it was Florian Wirtz who scored the goal. and Hernandez just wasn't really sharp enough and quick enough to the ball. Obviously, he's come from a long injury layoff, and it's going to take some time to get up to speed. But that might be one of the things that holds Davies a left back is Hernandez looks a bit off the pace right now.
Yeah, Rob, I mean, you're looking to your defender, whether it's a fullback or a center back, to come through when when you're facing goal. You want to make sure that someone's back to it's coming forward to come to that ball. So the camera angles really didn't do Davies any justice there.
No, it didn't. One thing I would say, I know the critique on Davies in Germany is positioning. That he is fairly new to playing left back. I recall him admitting it in one of the post game interviews a few weeks back. Luckily to his advantage with his speed, he's able to get back into the right position, but he does find himself in the wrong position. Not saying he was at fault for this goal at all, but you do notice that a little bit. And he's 19. He's playing left back at this level for the first time. It's going to happen. He's going to learn. And Bayern's obviously got patience with him there, but I'm not going to point fingers on this goal, but there's that it does occur with him at times, and with his athleticism, he's able to make up for it. And once in a while, he'll get caught at the highest level.
I mean, another player from CONCACAF, and Timothy Chandler, was playing in the game, interestingly, down the left-hand side for Frankfurt. But at 19, Davies is light years ahead of him. Isn't he, Josh? I mean, Timothy Chandler is a fine player and once upon a time was very highly regarded coming through, but Davies is on a different planet in terms of quality.
Yeah, he is. And like I said earlier, there's a willingness on Davies' part to learn. There's a willingness to try different positions, and there's a willingness to understand that you're surrounded by some of the best players on the planet, as I said pregame. And you have to understand that when you're on those players, or when you're near those players on the pitch, you have to be open to taking direction from them. We've seen him take direction from David Alaba many times. Thomas Mueller was shouting at him in Bayern's last game, him and Coman, to move back and be ready for a counterattack. That's an important part. Again, it's an intangible, but that's an important part of Davies and just who he is as a player, his ability to want to learn, be open to feedback, be open to criticism. And Ollie, you touched on this earlier. He's probably not going to complain where he's played, right? And we've seen it all before, Rob. You've no doubt seen it. Young players can have egos. Young players, when they're told they are the best, in their age bracket or whatever, as Alphonso Davies has established himself as being one of the best young players in CONCACAF, sometimes the ego can kind of play a part in who he is, but we don't see that in Alphonso Davies. And I think that's something we need to remember as well, that this is a teenager. This is a kid who's willing to learn and willing to learn from his mistakes. And that's, I think, a big part of why Bayern see him as a part of their future moving forward.
What's incredible is he's featuring prominently, has become a key piece to a team right now that is unbeaten in 21 games. The last time that they lost was way back on December 7th. So back in 2019, when everything was fine and normal back then. I mean, and now Bayern Munich are going to their 7th final in 9 years and getting a crack at the second successive, I should say, double, winning both league and cup competition. So that speaks volumes. I mean, Bayern Munich, if this went into extra time or penalties, they would have been kicking themselves, Ollie, because in the first half, they could have been 3 or 4 goals to the good.
Yeah, I think the match worked out in the way that Eintracht would have wanted to in the end. In that it was close after about an hour that they were able to get the 2 subs on Damada and Da Costa, who obviously made a big impact and were involved in the goal. And then suddenly it's, game on. But in reality, Bayern should have been out of sight half an hour in. Coman and Lewandowski missed basically open goals. They obviously got the goal through Perisic, and it could have been a finished game much earlier. But I think the dominance that Bayern had almost kind of lulled them to sleep in some ways, in that their intensity did drop and they weren't the same team in the second half. But all the same, they only had that 1 goal lead. So it could have been dangerous for them in the end. And yeah, I'm sure, they wouldn't have wanted to go on for any longer, given the amount of fixtures they're playing after coming back long break.
I simply love watching Thomas Mueller play at that level. Just his creativity and the fact that he can score, he can play off the ball. He compliments Lewandowski so much up top. I mean, Rob Lewandowski's a big man. You're a player that scored a lot of goals up top over the course of your career. But the way that those two complement one another, maybe you can just speak to how difficult it is for any defender to try to manage two players like that up top.
Yeah, I mean, part of the success of any striker is his partner, right? And Thomas Mueller, he still amazes me when I watch him because he's unorthodox, doesn't look athletic. Is he fast? Does he have good technical skills? You just never know with that guy. But honestly, he's one of the most clever footballers out there. Obviously, won a World Cup. Played at the highest level consistently over years. So, he makes everyone around him better. He just does things, and he's very efficient with what he does on the field. And he's always involved with the goals, whether he's scoring, whether he's assisting. He's just one of those guys that's been vital for Bayern's success over the years. And I'd love to see how many goals Lewandowski has scored off of either Muller's, hard work or a direct assist. So, but again, he's a joy to watch because he's just one of those players you can't make guys like that. And just with his experience and just ways to find those pockets, he's one of the best in the world at that.
Mueller assisted on the first goal scored by Perisic. He has 20 assists in Bundesliga play. That's just one assist away from Kevin De Bruyne's record for a season. So playing a different role as he's hit the other side of 30. But Lewandowski, the commentator said it was his 46th goal in all competition. Josh, I have him down for 45. Perhaps I wrote it down wrong in my notes, but with players up top and these options and the way that they play, what do you make of what you saw today from this group up top? It wasn't maybe a vintage day from that group, but you can always count on them to score a goal when need be.
Yeah, and they score goals in different ways as well. And there was a lot made of Lewandowski's desire or maybe inclination to leave Bayern a few years back. Bayern convinced him to stay. We know he was linked with Real Madrid. But what it speaks to for me is when you have two players that have played so long together and understand each other's movements almost in an instinctual manner. And we don't see that a lot in world football because players up top, the strikers, the forwards, they're moving every few years because these are the players that are in demand more than any other players, right? They're the players that are always offered bigger contracts. But when you have these players like Lewandowski is becoming that Bayern legend. We know Thomas Mueller is very much the face of Bayern Munich. When you have these two players that have played together for so long, can understand each other's movements and can feed off those movements, that's not something you can really put a price on. So it doesn't surprise me that Lewandowski is having the season that he is because he's in a good place. He's surrounded by good players as well. And sometimes that takes time when new players, come together and, they're playing together in a new system. That's not the case with Lewandowski and Mueller. And yeah, you're right. It's a treat to watch.
Before we look ahead to the final, let's quickly go around and share some final thoughts on the match. I just wanted to give full credit to Eintracht Frankfurt, not only for having a real go of it in the second half. I just thought it was complete class for them to have hashtag Black Lives Matter across their kit today. Indeed.com is their sponsor, and obviously that was in conjunction with them. But, it's just great to see that kind of awareness by a football club, understanding the stage and the ability to spread that message today. So well done to Eintracht Frankfurt for spreading that message. We'll start off with you, Ollie. Just some final thoughts on the match and what we witnessed over the last 90 plus minutes.
Yeah, I think just to add to what Josh said, but Bayern and Rob as well, Bayern are so impressive with their movement and in the attacking third. They consistently go up against teams that play very deep and obviously are going to be happy with a draw, and they try and deny them space in behind and between the lines. And when you're not good at dealing with that, it can lead to a lot of sideways passing, a lot of kind of aimless possession, and you can be vulnerable to counterattacks. But Bayern just consistently find ways to create those little combinations. One player comes short, the other one goes behind. The movement is so intelligent, and Alaba and Boateng are so good at hitting those diagonal balls as well. And they find a way to play vertical and to play quickly when there's very little space and opportunity to do so. So, in the first 30 minutes, they were excellent and a joy to watch. And when they're playing like that, as we've mentioned in the pregame, I think they're a match for anyone in Europe.
Rob, any other final thoughts in the match?
Yeah, no, just following up on Ollie there, predictable result. But Bayern is, as we mentioned earlier, is arguably the hottest team in Europe right now. They're a joy to watch. Davies has been, very biased of us, but he's been a pleasure as well to watch what he's doing day in, day out. On international TV, we're all proud of him, and to see him in the POKAL final will be great. Bayern versus Bayer. I think that's two of the hottest teams right now in the Bundesliga. So it's not going to be an easy match for Bayern Munich. Bayer Leverkusen has a lot of young talent, and they can beat anyone at any time. So I think that's a perfect script for the Bundesliga, for the POKAL. Those two teams in the final, and the world's going to be watching, and we'll be cheering on Afonso.
Josh, on this match specifically, what do you have?
A rare negative comment about Bayern. Really didn't like the new kit. Really didn't like the new kits. Big day for them debuting the new shirts. Way too boring for me. Way too plain. And that's by far the only thing I can say about Bayern over the last 3-4 months.
Well, I just wasn't sure if Leon Goretzka was that big or whether they gave him a schmedium by accident, because it's one or the other. Rob, you transitioned July 4th, the final on One Soccer, Bayer Leverkusen against Bayern Munich. These two sides played last time out in the Bundesliga. Bayern Munich won that match 4-2 was the final. But Leverkusen was resting some players for their own semifinal tie, beating Saarbrücken yesterday. 3-0 was the final. No Kai Havertz, he didn't play in that game. And whenever the conversation of best players in CONCACAF, obviously Davies and Pulisic, players of that ilk, are on the tip of the tongue. Jamaican Leon Bailey also plays for a very talented Leverkusen side with Volland and Havertz and Baumgart-Linder. Like, this team has talent. They're fifth right now in the Bundesliga. Ollie, I think that they can really have even more of a go with it, considering it's played in front of no people, no spectators inside a stadium. I think they can push Bayern Munich in this cup final. What do you make of the potential of what we may see July 4th?
Yeah, I think it's a really good matchup because obviously Bayern are the best team in the country. They're going to win the league in all likelihood, and they're on for the treble. As we mentioned before, they have an opportunity in the Champions League with Liverpool out of the way to go for that trophy as well. So this could be a special year for Bayern, and of course they will enter the match as favourites. But they do come up against, I think, the guy who is the jewel of German football right now, which is Kai Havertz, who's been playing sensationally well, and he has the ability to put a very good Leverkusen team on his back and cause Bayern problems. So from that perspective, I think it's a really exciting matchup.
Yeah, they have a lot of quality going forward, and perhaps that's what can test, the two center backs, even the likes of Davies or Pavard, Josh. Like, that has to be where the focus would be, where Frankfurt sat back a little bit deeper, especially in the first half of play. Leverkusen is much more talented going forward.
Yeah, I mean, no surprise for me. Let's talk about this as a great advertisement for German football, because we include Florian Wirtz as well, the 17-year-old who just on the weekend became the youngest Bundesliga scorer in league history. This is arguably two of the most talented teams in the Bundesliga, and it's a great advertisement for Germany's focus on youth development, right? And again, to just bring Alphonso Davies back into it, there's not a lot of leagues around the world, Rob, you can probably attest to this, where young players get the opportunities that they do in Germany. So to have a final where you're going to have Kai Havertz, who is one of the most in-demand names in world football, a young player, Florian Wirtz, 17-year-old, who could be another one of the next jewels of German football, going up against the giants of German football. It's going to be a great match, and one I'm looking forward to, again, because of just the sheer individual talent on the pitch. Bayern isn't necessarily a storied rivalry, but look, if you want talent, this final is going to offer it.
Rob, do you want to piggyback off of what Josh said?
No, I want to make a comment. Exactly, Josh, what you mentioned, it's a testament to German football, their focus on youth players. They do such a good job of bringing in the right players, young players, developing them and playing them. And ultimately it's about playing. And there's no coincidence why the biggest clubs in the world are looking at German football for plucking the best young talent out of there. Havertz is linked to one of the top, most of the top clubs in the world: Madrid, Barcelona, Chelsea, Man City, you name it. So that final is going to showcase, arguably the top two young players in the world, Havertz and Davies. So there you go. That's what German football is about. Really developing players, and fortunately for us, one's a Canadian on that pitch, and we can't say it enough. But just proud of German football, what they do on the world stage, and I think I'll make a prediction. Havertz's going to go for a record transfer fee from Bayer Leverkusen. So it's going to be unfortunate to see him leave German football unless Bayern Munich picks him up. But no, it's going to be an exciting final. I'm excited for it, and it'll be fun to watch.
He could, and that's a conversation that's kind of come up about Havertz. Is obviously a lot of good young German players end up playing for Bayern Munich, and they still are. Josh, you can clarify this. I believe in the mix for his services, potentially signing the player, but obviously there's interest from abroad as well. The way that they use Havertz is just so interesting to me because he can drop him a little bit deeper. He can lead the line up top. He can play out on the wing as well. So that's something that Bayern Munich will really have to deal with in this match. How best do Leverkusen line up to cause some problems within the Bayern Munich team, Josh?
To me, you attack the game right away, right? And we've seen it time and time again with Bayern where teams maybe sit back, they try and hit them on the counter, and Bayern just has too much individual quality. And Ollie, you kind of mentioned this. Midway through the game, Bayern looked like they kind of took their foot off the gas a bit. If you can kind of attack them early, if you can try and, sneak one by them, get through them early, and then maintain that pressure, Bayern are not always the team that can sustain that kind of play for 90 minutes. So, I mean, again, when you have a player like Kai Havertz, why not use him to the best of his abilities and attack the game right away? So, I mean, maybe that's a tall order for Leverkusen, but that's what I would like to see from them to give Bayern a run for their money in the final.
Ollie, final thought?
I agree with Josh. I think they're an attacking, high-octane side, right? And you've got to respect the opponent, obviously, but you can't go too far away from what you are and what your strengths are either, particularly in a one-off game like that. So I'd hope that Leverkusen come out of the blocks fast, as we know they can, and try and cause Bayern problems.
Incredible. 7 points to top the Bundesliga. They're in a cup final as well. Looks like they're almost there to win their trophy in 20 consecutive seasons. It's just a remarkable run of form, statistic, accomplishment for the great club Bayern Munich. It is Bayern Munich Leverkusen. That's coming up July 4th right here on One Soccer. During the match, some breaking news coming out of Canada Soccer. It has nothing to do with Alphonso Davies. Canada's women's head coach, Kenneth Mueller, is stepping away as head coach of the Canadian women's national team as of August. Now, of course, the Canadian women were supposed to be playing in the Olympics, so obviously change of plans to the schedule, change of plans for Kenneth Mueller as well. He's returning to his home country of Denmark, where he's going to be the head coach of education, leading the Canadian women. I'm not shocked. I'm not surprised by this news, Ollie. What's your initial reaction to the women's coach stepping away?
No, I'm not shocked. I don't know if he was ever quite the right fit for the job. Not really because of his coaching ability, but I think with our national teams, and I would even say in the CPL as well, you need the coaches to kind of fly the flag for the program and for the team as well as being the manager. And I think compared to John Herdman, Kenneth Mueller was much more of a kind of reserved figure. Didn't really seek publicity or anything like that. You'd have to say that the results have been disappointing, particularly against the top nations. We just haven't really seen nearly enough good results in those matches, and obviously at the World Cup. But at the same time, he had a difficult job in terms of transitioning away from a lot of those players who won the 2 bronze medals and bringing through the next generation. And that's going to continue for the next coach, who in all likelihood will have to manage that transition away from Christine Sinclair. So it's not an easy job, but a lot of things to be excited about and a lot of appealing factors as well, I think.
Josh?
Yeah, Rob, I mean, you would probably attest to this. Sometimes you just need to go home. Like I don't know the full story, and I don't know who does, and when we will learn the full story, but it doesn't surprise me that he would go and take a job back in Denmark, because sometimes the pull of making your mark in the place you grew up, the place you call home, is just that strong that you kind of maybe walk away from other opportunities. So not surprising to me either.
Yeah, I look at Heiner Muller, good guy, good coach, but he wasn't John Herdman. And whoever took over that job after John Herdman, yes, he was familiar with the players. Yes, he came from within the program. But at the end of the day, Herdman was more than just a head coach. He was a motivator. He was the women's program at that time. Not taking anything away from the women on the field, but he was so much more than just a head coach. So whoever this next individual is, I'm not sure what you want to replicate, but what I will say is it wasn't just the results, Ollie. Sometimes the performance left you wanting more from this group because he does have very good young players, or did, at his disposal. And we always argued about how he used certain players and what sort of lineups he'd use. And of course, the Women's World Cup last summer was a massive disappointment. So here we go. Hopefully this leads to perhaps finding, the next individual, man or woman, that's going to see this program hopefully reach new heights, because the talent is certainly there.
It is for sure. I think obviously there is that, there's a bit of a gap, right, between Sinclair and Matheson and the players like that and some of the teenagers that are coming through. Aside from Ashley Lawrence and Kadisha Buchanan, there's not a whole lot of players in their prime right now, which has obviously been one of the challenges that Heiner Muller has faced. But certainly, those teenage players are very exciting and promising. And I think, there is a bright future for the program, but it is going to take some time.
So Kenneth Heiner Muller stepping away from the program as of August. The CSA has thanked him for his time and will start their search immediately. As this news is breaking, we're waiting for more news to break surrounding the resumption, or the start, I should say, of the Canadian Premier League season. The players, the clubs have come to an agreement about a structure, what the 2020 season will look like. When it will be announced, we're still waiting. CEO, co-founder of Pacific FC. It's a good time to have you here because your players are back on the field doing individual and small-sided training. They must be relieved to be back on the field, Rob.
No, absolutely. It's, the entire organization to see the players training again is very satisfying. Seeing the players at home, daily Zoom training sessions, that for any player, that's extremely challenging. But, I think when you're a player, we sort of had to talk to our players consistently, just letting them know that the rest of the world is doing the same thing. It's not just the CPL. It's not just you guys. I was watching Bayern Munich training sessions that they were having on Zoom. So the entire football world was doing this and trying to navigate this challenging time, and just kind of going with the flow. No one's faced this sort of challenge, and clubs, whether it's Pacific FC or Bayern Munich, there's no script that you follow. There's no template during the pandemic. So how do you keep your players motivated? How do you keep them fit? Keep them engaged? And then on the business side, how do you keep your fans engaged? Leading up to a season, the momentum we had last year, adding Atletico Madrid, we really had the wind against us, and this really, it didn't hurt us, I think, overall in the big picture, but, it's definitely, we're facing challenges, but we're very optimistic on providing the season this year for our players and for our fans.
I love the way your club played last year. I mean, you're the youngest team and the most minutes played by under 21 players in the Canadian Premier League last year. They're young players. I mean, they're still maturing themselves. How have they dealt with this time away from the game or being forced to stay off the field?
Yeah, I think they've done a fantastic job, and hats off to our entire technical team, our coaches, Pod, James, and our medical staff, really keeping them engaged. And I think that's what it's about. And, they were confused, and we all were, and there was no answer to this. And again, we had to kind of show them, hey, every player in the world is going through the same challenge that you guys have. And I think really, going through this sort of adversity as a club, and you see clubs around, you see clubs in Germany, especially, you almost have to look at who put in that extra work during this sort of break. You look at a team like Schalke. They haven't won a game since they've been back. And you wonder, were those teams less engaged with their players, because you saw Bayern Munich come back firing, and it's like they didn't miss a beat. So, part of the challenge we have is continuing to keep them motivated, build on last year, and not saying that it's somewhat detrimental to our model of young players. They're all going to be a year older essentially, and not playing a ton of games for 2020. Ultimately that hurts them, hurts their valuation. But we're doing everything we can as ownership to provide a season that they get to play games competitively and play for something, and to continue to develop, because really that's what not only our club's all about, is developing these young Canadian players, and but the rest of the league as well. So we're excited that we're able to pull something off now, and hopefully we'll be able to announce something very soon.
Yeah, hopefully. How close are we, Rob, to announcing something?
I tell you what, it's been a roller coaster. It's one day it's coming to us, one day it's going to Prince Edward Island. Sometimes I have to log on to Twitter to see where the latest rumor is, and I'm part of these conversations. So it's we're relying on the certain the provincial governments, health authorities, who's a bit more lenient. We're fortunate Vancouver Island hasn't seen a COVID case in over 4 weeks, so definitely to our advantage. But I think the Maritimes would say the same. I love competing versus the Maritimes in terms of who's going to get this event. It creates that sort of West Coast, East Coast competition again, in another factor. But, I think we're close. I know PEI is very close. They're very motivated. I know British Columbia, the province, has a lot of challenges, from tourism to trying to revamp the entire economy. There's a lot more moving parts, I'd say, in British Columbia, but I can confidently say, we're very likely to play games this season, and I think we're excited with the help of Media Pro One Soccer to really show additional content, and really showcase our players, showcase this league, and hopefully we come out on top and we capture the general Canadian soccer fan, because most likely there won't be a ton of live games being shown across North America. MLS will be finishing their little tournament. So I think we have an opportunity to showcase this league across Canada, internationally, and hopefully that showcases our players into the national team. Hopefully there's European clubs that are going to be logging on to One Soccer, watching our games, because there's nothing else on live football around the globe, or limited. And so I think we will come out on top and build for next season.
And it's a great product. I was so impressed by the first season. The entertainment value was through the roof. You got a great thing going out there in Victoria. West Hill's a great stadium facility that's been expanded. It would be a perfect fit for any sort of season or league. Absolutely. I'm not sure if Ollie and Josh have any questions. I just have one more. Obviously, team and squad recruitment has been challenging over the course of this time as well. Is your squad pretty much set and ready to go heading into the season, or do you tap into your German connections and maybe bring over a couple more players?
Well, it's funny. I mean, we identified our needs immediately after the season, and by bringing in Pa, before we even signed him, we were having conversations about building the squad, building off what we had last year. Really, we wanted to bring our core young players in for another season or two. So really building off that core of young players, adding a couple more veterans like Jamar Dixon. Yep. We needed that in the locker room, and adding some game changers like Bustos, like Diaz, adding those sort of players to the mix. And we're very happy with the core we got. Certainly it's got derailed in terms of we had some exciting internationals pegged to sign. We were very close to signing them. Obviously, now that COVID happened, it's very challenging to bring any international into the country, as anyone could imagine. So we're sort of in a holding pattern in terms of who we can sign from where, and also sort of looking at Canadian players that are sort of, whether they're in limbo in Europe, whether they're sort of in Canada right now. There's some young players out there that need games as well. So can we tap into those players? And I'd love to see more Canadians see the pitch this year. And maybe this is an opportunity. Maybe we're going to play some more younger Canadian players. Maybe some MLS academy players can get some games. And I'd love to see that, because ultimately it's about growing the game in this country, helping our young players out. So maybe this is an opportunity that we can't bring international players in for this season, and let's throw the young kids out there and let's see what they can do.
Love it. Ollie, Josh, anything else?
No, I'm good. I think we'll let Rob go and enjoy his vacation.
Yeah, Rob, you were mentioning Canadian players. Look, Ollie can attest to this. If you need a rec league goalkeeper who comes out of his net far too often and quite recklessly, you just give me a call, okay?
Love it. You looked the part, Josh. So I might just sign you. I'm trying to convince Josh Simpson, our my co-owner, to come back, because I've seen him run his marathons and his 15K runs every morning. He still got it. So I said, Josh, we may need a few more Canadian content on the pitch. You up for one final season? So we'll see.
Rob, I think you're still on the right side of 40 here, so maybe you can come back out there.
We'll see. We'll see how many more Canadians we need to add to the roster. I might just lace the boots up again. But
right on.
I was never fast to begin with, and I don't like my chances scoring any more goals.
Well, this has been awesome. Thanks for joining us to take part today. I know that there's still a lot of pride when you see one of your former clubs play, and kind of you get to sit back and enjoy the current state of the Bundesliga, but you had a big part in that, and you still hold the record as Canadian with the most goals scored in the Bundesliga. No goals for Davies, by the way, today. So you'll probably be able to hold on to that mark for just a little bit longer. Cherish every moment.
Yeah, definitely at home with my 10-year-old son. I still have I'm still a cool dad. I'm the top scorer Canadian in the Bundesliga. So we'll see how long I can hold that street value, street cred up with him and his buddies. But no, I'm proud Canadian playing in the Bundesliga, and it's still my favorite league to watch, and it's great to see more Canadians having success there. I'd love to see Jonathan David there. So we'll see what happens, but it's a great league and a joy to watch.
Awesome. Good stuff, Rob. Best of luck whenever the season starts for your Pacific FC. Really looking forward to seeing the boys back out in the field.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
CEO, co-founder of Pacific, Rob Friend, joining us on today's broadcast. Good stuff, Josh. Josh, it would have been a disaster if Bayern Munich wasn't in the finals and we couldn't do this all over again, chatting about Alphonso Davies potentially lifting a trophy this season with Bayern, one of two trophies this season with Bayern Munich.
Well, if you think I'm going to stop talking about Alphonso Davies anytime soon, you're wrong, Wheels.
Right on. Thanks for doing this, pal. Great stuff. You can read Josh's fine work in The Athletic and obviously right here on One Soccer as well. Ollie, plenty up your sleeve as well as we build towards a potential Canadian Premier League season. MLS announced their MLS is back tournament today, so plenty to follow in the coming weeks.
Yeah, obviously we've been getting to talk to a lot of CPL personalities and Canadian soccer personalities over the course of the break, but obviously we're hoping now that we can start to transition back to something like normality and towards some real games, right? Whether it's West Coast or East Coast. So yeah, hopefully an exciting few weeks to come.
Follow us at One Soccer for all your Canadian Premier League news and notes, and more announcements, more coverage, more games coming your way across the world as the resumption of play expands worldwide. On behalf of Rob, Ollie, Josh, Kyle, Armin, and everyone at One Soccer, I am Gareth Wheeler. Join us July 4th. The cup final, Leverkusen, Bayern Munich. We'll be bringing it to you on One Soccer. I am Gareth Wheeler, reminding you to stay home and stay safe.